Well, Friday comes quick on a short week, doesn't it? Welcome to Bakes on Things, the first sip, and I hope you have your first sip of coffee or tea with me. Let's stop pretending, though, that all of this is an accident because the Canadian middle class isn't dying, it's being erased. And I don't think that's by mistake. I do not think in any way that that's an accident. I think that's all by design because to people like Mark Carney, the middle class isn't a foundation to protect. It's an obstacle in his way that he needs to control. He doesn't want a nation of people who own their own homes, for example, small business owners and independent thinkers. That really just gets in his way, gets right up in his craw. He wants a nation of dependents, neatly categorized, easily managed by the government, and grateful for government relief at all times. You see, when you have a strong middle class, you have power that can't be bought or bossed around by anyone. You have people who can say no because they run their own lives, and nothing terrifies a technocrat like Mark Carney more than millions of Canadians who do not need him. Let's go.
Welcome to Bakes on Things.
Welcome back to Bakes on Things, the first sip. Let's have our coffee tea together. It's Friday. The week is almost over. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and of course, have a conversation down below. Do you see the middle class falling apart here? Let's talk about it. And of course, share this video as well, because for the last 10 years, Canada's been running an experiment. What happens when you suffocate the people who actually make the economy work? Well, we've watched housing, for example. We've watched housing double, triple, then absolutely explode out of control. We've seen wages flatline across the country while government spending skyrockets. We've seen taxes climb, debt soar, and small businesses drown in compliance rules written by people who've never actually run a small business themselves. And every single time Canadians cry out on all of this stuff, the government responds with the same soothing words: support programs, affordability funds, and relief checks. Remember that with the carbon tax? But those aren't solutions. They're sedatives to a problem. They're designed to keep people quiet while Ottawa rearranges the furniture in this country, shifting wealth upward and control inward. And that destroys the middle class. See, the middle class, the people who used to save, own, invest, and vote independently, are being deliberately squeezed into one of two groups: the elite, who own all the assets, and the rest, who do not own anything but debt. That's the two groups. Those are the people that exist now in this country more and more every single day. And the math behind all of this, if you think I'm going bonkers and that this doesn't really exist and this really isn't happening, we have to look at the math, and we'll do that. Let's look at those numbers. So in 2015, the average Canadian home cost 4 times the average household income. 4 times. Today, it's more than 9 times. Debt to income ratios are at record highs right now. Mortgage renewals, as we talked about earlier this week, are coming in with interest rates double or triple what they were. Families that used to take a vacation once a year are now choosing between groceries and gas and not even thinking about vacations right now. And still, Mark Carney stands at podiums talking about inclusive growth. But he doesn't mean any of this. Inclusive for who exactly, Mark? The only thing being included in this economy are more Canadians in the ranks of the working poor. Those are the only things being included in this Canadian economy right now. Because here's the quiet truth that economists don't like to say out loud in this country: the middle class is expensive to the country. They expect stability, they expect low taxes, their affordable housing, and opportunity. They resist radical policy, and they question authority. If you eliminate the middle class, you eliminate the resistance, don't you? And that, my friends, is the exact goal we are looking at here. Eliminating the resistance to Mark Carney, the resistance to the Liberal government, and really they're just trying to make it harder for you to even vote any other way. Mark Carney's vision for Canada, and really for the West, is one where citizens don't own anything. They only access things. And even Trudeau said it blatantly: you will own nothing. You won't own your home, you'll rent it. You won't own your car, you'll lease it. You won't save for retirement, you'll depend on government pensions. And you won't invest independently. Your savings will be guided by sustainable finance. That's what they'll call it, meaning politically approved investments. Can you believe it? These are things that are on the table in other countries and are quickly coming here. They're things that are all being reviewed here, by the way. They're not destroying the middle class by accident in any way. They're replacing it with a managed class. You'll have your elites, your poor, and your managed class. A society where independence becomes rebellion, where financial self-reliance becomes dangerous, where the government becomes both your landlord and your lender. And that is a scary prospect to be looking at. And if you think that sounds dramatic in any way, if you think that you want to push back on me in the comments, go right ahead and try, but look around. The banks are tighter, the taxes are higher, and the programs are endless, each one making you just more dependent enough to not fight back anymore. And that's not a good thing. That's a scary thing. That's your future. That's even becoming your present. This isn't even new, none of this. I mean, none of it is new. We've seen this same model play out in Europe. The slow bleed of the productive middle, replaced by a permanent administrative class and a population living on state support. That's what's happening in the EU right now in many, many countries. France tried to tax wealth until investors fled. The Netherlands tried to regulate private rentals into extinction. The UK, under Carney's own watch, in fact, as Bank of England governor, saw home ownership collapse among young people. Where does that sound like? A generation locked out for life from owning any type of home in the UK. And now he's imported that same thinking here to Canada. And he's growing it quickly, like a virus. A future where the equitable society he keeps talking about looks a lot like a pyramid. Wide base of renters, small elite of asset holders, and a government sitting comfortably right on the top, controlling both sides of the coin. That's not fairness, folks. That's feudalism with Wi-Fi. And that's a terrible, terrible plight for this country going forward. So what are we looking at here? The corporate alliance? It exists. That's where this is a problem, because of course Carney isn't doing this alone. Why would he be? The global corporate world loves this model too. A weak middle class helps the corporate world. A weak middle class means cheap labor for the corporate world, who are right now doing this through the temporary work program. And it's predictable consumption as well. When people can't build wealth, they become perfect customers, renting, borrowing, subscribing, paying forever and never free. So you have government and corporate power working hand in hand. One writes the policy, the other profits from the policy. And that's how the Liberals got in the last election as well. You can see it in housing. You can see foreign capital and corporate landlords buying up entire neighborhoods. Think Brookfield Asset Management, for one. While young families can't even get a mortgage renewal approved. Or if they get a renewal approved, the interest rate's so high it makes them have to sell their home. And guess who they're selling to? You can see it in finance, ESG scores replacing merit and performance, forcing money into politically favored sectors instead of productive ones. And you can see it in media. We know that in this country all too well. Outlets that depend on government subsidies can't tell the truth about who's really benefiting from this so-called transition in the economy, can they? This isn't incompetence. It's absolute alignment. It's planned. And it is laid out in a larger plan that we can't see. They're not failing. They're succeeding at something most Canadians don't yet realize is the entire plan in the first place. And it was probably a plan that Justin Trudeau was poorly executing and got removed. So there's a psychological trap attached to all of this as well. Here's the genius of it all. They've made the victims blame themselves. This is the craziness of all of it. You can't afford a home? Well, it's because you should have saved earlier in life. You can't get ahead? Well, that's because you picked the wrong career, you stupid idiot. Struggling with inflation? Oh, stop complaining. At least you have a job. What are you complaining about? There are others who don't. They've convinced the middle class that their collapse is personal failure instead of structural design. And that's the genius of the whole plan. Meanwhile, the people designing the system, the Carneys, the bankers, the consultants, the WEF, they're all cashing out stock options, buying second homes with that money, and giving lectures about sustainability to the other elites. They talk about transitioning to a fairer economy, but fairness to them means something totally different than what fairness means to you. Fairness to them means equality of outcome, and equality of outcome means you staying exactly where you are, right under their thumb. That's where they want you, and that's where they want you to stay. So here's the final phase, which we're starting to get into, and that's where we say, normalization. The final phase of any system like this is normalization. The point where young Canadians stop even imagining home ownership. It's just not a thing for them. It's not that it'll ever become a thing, and they just don't even imagine owning their home at all. Where two generations grow up thinking debt is normal, renting is permanent, and prosperity is something your grandparents got very lucky with in their time, and it's not something you can experience. And once that mindset sets in, the transformation is complete. The middle class isn't just gone economically, it's gone psychologically too. A country that stops believing in mobility stops being a free country. It becomes a managed population. And this is what's happening very, very quickly to Canada. That's exactly what Mark Carney wants. A country small enough to govern, predictable enough to control, and docile enough to applaud its own decline. And that's where we sit. That's Canada today. You can try to argue it all you want, but if you're going to argue it in the comments, I need numbers. Because right now, I'm providing you with the numbers. And so if you've got a counter argument, use proof. Look, the middle class built Canada. We know this. We know this very, very, they know this. Middle class built the businesses, the charities, the communities. The entire backbone of this country was built by the middle class. They believed in hard work and fair play and the idea that if you tried, you could make it. Destroy that, and you destroy Canada itself. Because without the middle class, democracy becomes a performance. It's just the wealthy. It's just the wealthy talking to the poor, with the government translating for both of you. It's really sad, and it's where we're headed. And that's the country we've been heading toward for probably a decade now. Not the strong, self-reliant Canada we all grew up in, but a managed, manufactured Canada where citizens are clients and freedom is just another government program. You can't make this stuff up in this country, folks. Let's wrap it up right here, right now. Is the middle class, in your opinion, toast? If it is, I want to hear about it in the conversation down below. Don't tell me the middle class is shrinking. It's being erased. And I want to hear otherwise if you think otherwise. Or if you think it is being erased, let's extend the conversation in the comments. And if you think Mark Carney doesn't know all of this, you haven't been paying any attention whatsoever, which is typical of liberals, but I hope the rest of you are paying attention as well. He's a man who built his entire career predicting the future. He knows exactly what he's doing. He makes it look like, oh, we're just experimenting as we go forth because the economy is unique right now. No, he knows what he's doing. The middle class does get in the way of global governance. It gets in the way of control. And that's why it's being quietly dismantled by the elite. Piece by piece, tax by tax, regulation by regulation, until one day we're all going to wake up and realize there's no ladder left to climb. But here's the thing. They still need us to believe in the myth. They need us to keep working right now, to keep paying, to keep voting for the people tightening the rope on us. So don't believe the myth anymore. That's the biggest thing. Don't believe it. The middle class isn't dying of natural causes. It's being murdered in plain sight. And the fingerprints are all over 24 Sussex, Bay Street, and the PMO. You see, Mark Carney might think that a compliant Canada is a successful Canada, but a truly free Canada, the one the middle class built in the first place, is still out there. Pierre Poilievre has mentioned this multiple times. It's waiting to fight back, because if the middle class falls, the country falls. And we are not going quietly. Thanks for watching Bakes on Things, the first sip on your Friday. Don't forget, we'll be back at 5 o'clock this evening with the last word of the week. And of course, tomorrow morning, we'll have the weekend wrap as well on Saturday to wrap up the whole week. But thanks for watching this one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and of course, share in the conversations down below. And we will catch you this evening on the last word.